right, we are back with another episode of It's That Easy. This time we're talking about the NCAA Tournament. Man, what a tournament it's been. So we already know who's in the Sweet 16. But let's take a quick look back at some of the picks that we had to determine how we got there. So if you're watching, please like the video. I greatly appreciate it. I've said this before and I will say it again. If you take any time out of your day to even watch a little bit of it, and like it, I greatly appreciate that. It's just something I like to do, and having your support or people to support this really means a lot to me. So thank you very much. And if you want to subscribe, go ahead and do that, and that way you know whenever I post new videos. But let's get into it. So let's talk about the first four. So this was pretty cool because a few years back they decided, okay, 62 teams is not enough. We need to give 8 more teams a chance to get in to start the round of 64 teams. And so that happened, and so put out these picks, and they were for March 17th and 18th. And Texas was my top pick there. I actually had them to cover 1.5, which usually means they're going to win. Well, guess what? They won. They beat North Carolina State. They actually had them beat by, 9 points with probably a minute left. And North Carolina State took them to overtime and then almost won there. They got hot at the end, but UT won by 2 points at the end. Got my cover. Great pick there. SMU was playing Miami of Ohio, who, I thought they probably feel a little disrespected, even though they went 31-1. And, I'm sure everyone was like, yeah, they don't need to be in the tournament. Well, I kind of figured they'd show up, so I gave them the plus 6.5 points. And guess what? They actually won by 10. So that's like a 17-point turn there for them. Howard and UMBC played. Didn't have a clue about them. Just did a little bit of homework like I've done on all my games. Picked Howard to cover the the plus 1.5 points. They actually won my 3. So they made their tournament. I think it was their first tournament. And then Prairie View from the good old state of Texas, just north of Houston. They had been showing out pretty good in their tournament. I think they won their tournament, their conference tournament. So I said, yeah, let's keep going with them. Well, guess what? They were 3.5 point dogs, and they beat Lehigh 67-55. So that actually gave me a perfect 4 for the first 4. So then we got into the bigger rounds where everyone started. Everyone started the big dance. So let's see how that goes. So let's start with the East. So I did a video on each of the 4 regions that we're playing. And here, sent my picks out. I even put them on TikTok. So here they are for you. So let's go over them, how they did. So the first one was, I thought Duke versus Siena. They should destroy Siena by 27 plus points. Well, guess what? They were losing most of the game. They did come back, though, to win the game by 6. So good for Duke, bad for betting. Ohio State, I actually thought Ohio State would beat TCU because I thought I've seen Ohio State play toward the end of the season. Really tough team. They beat teams that they shouldn't have beaten, and they hung tough at home with some teams that they shouldn't have hung tough with. Well, it didn't matter because I had them by 2.5. They were favored, but TCU said, you know what, we're not having that. TCU won 66-64. St. John's, coached by the great Rick Pitino. I do like that team. They showed up and showed out. They actually won by 26 points, so that 10.5, pretty easy. I had Kansas by 14.5 playing California Baptist University. Well, California Baptist put up a better fight than we thought, and Kansas won, but only by 8 points. So that was okay there. Louisville, I thought South Florida would put up a better fight because they actually fought really hard just to get to the chance to get in the tournament. Louisville beat them by 4, and they had them by 4.5, so that covered actually. Oh, no, I did say that. Yeah, they only lost. I had them by 4.5 plus 4. They lost by 4 points, so that was good. And that's because they came back at the end. Louisville had them pretty good, but South Florida says, no, we're not having that. Rob picked us. So they came back to cut it within 4 points. Michigan State was another team that I liked. and they actually beat North Dakota State by, 25 points. So that covered the 16.5 real easy. So that was a good pick there. I liked UCLA by 5.5 over Central Florida. Central Florida put up a good fight, and they ended up winning by 4. So even though UCLA does win the game, they didn't win by 5.5. And then UConn, of course, everybody knows they're going to beat Furman by 21 points or more. No, except Furman. They beat them by 11, and I don't even think it was that close until the very end. So that was the picks. So I went, 3-5 in the East. Not a great start, but wait till you see the next ones we got. All right, so we get into the West here. So I had Arizona beating Long Island. No, sorry. I thought Long Island University would cover the 30.5 points, which is a ton of points to lose by if you go to the tournament. Well, they didn't do that because they lost by practically 40 points. I think it was 36 points or 34 points. So it was close, but Arizona beat them pretty good. So I thought one of them, I should have picked Siena, obviously, not these guys. But, there's some that are going to be really big underdogs and they're going to cover. Apparently this one wasn't it. Utah State, though, I like them. Minus 1.5 over Villanova, and they ended up beating them by 10 points. Feel bad for Villanova a little bit, but they weren't that big of a draw from the Big East, so oh well. Better luck next time. Now Wisconsin, I had Wisconsin beating High Point by 9.5 points. Hey, I didn't know anything about High Point. I learned a lot over this last week. High Point took it to them, actually beat them. They beat Wisconsin, knocked them out. Number 12 seed beat the number 5 seed. They beat them 83-82, so that ruined part of my bracket there. Arkansas, I had over Hawaii, and they lived up to it. They almost beat them by 20 points, so that 15.5 is pretty good. Arkansas was really good, and they've turned out to be a really good team over this tournament. BYU, I went with Texas again, the hot hand, plus 2.5, and Texas showed up against BYU, beat them very convincingly. They won by 8, but they beat them pretty much by 10 to 8 points the entire game. So that was really good. Good to see them in the Sweet 16. Let's see, Gonzaga. I had them by 20.5 points over Kennesaw State. I saw Kennesaw State play, and they were not very good. But they were good enough to hang in there, and they only lost by 9 to Gonzaga, so that didn't cover. Miami, I did like Miami over Missouri because I didn't think Missouri was a very tough team. Only 1.5 points. Yeah, Miami beat them by 14, so that was a really good game there. And then Purdue, I knew one of these would hang in there. I picked Queens University to cover the 25.5 points by Purdue, and they could not do it. Purdue beat them by 33 points, so that was pretty impressive by then. So if you see here, I went 500 here, 4-4, 3-5 in the previous one, so we're getting there. So wait till you see the next one. Okay, in the South bracket, okay, I'm getting better now. 8 games, 6-2. Now this is looking pretty good. This is when it started to tilt. I said, okay, the money we're making is over the money we're losing. Thank goodness. Yeah, because I can't come home if I do it the other way. Let's see. We'll start with Florida and Prairie View. So I was on that Prairie View bandwagon. I said they did really good in their conference tournaments, which I won with them on their last game, the championship game. I won in the first 4. I said they got to cover the 35.5 points against Florida. No, it was pretty bad. They almost lost by 60 points. So not very good at all. I did see that their coach says they could have used some help from God. And yeah, I believe that. I think God could have helped them at least cover the 35.5 points. Clemson. I liked Clemson over Iowa. I've learned a lesson watching Iowa over the last week. Clemson did not beat Iowa, even though they had a good showing against Duke in the ACC tournament. Iowa beat them by 6, so that was a really bad pick. But after that, man, we took off. Vanderbilt and McNeese. I do like Vanderbilt. I thought they were pretty good, but I've seen McNeese play. 11.5 points. That's a lot of points there. Yeah, they actually only won by 10, so that was really good. And McNeese came back at the end. I think they did it for me. I was very grateful for them covering that 11.5 points. Nebraska is really good. I like those guys. And Nebraska showed up and showed out. They played Troy. They beat them by almost 30 points. So that 12.5, yeah, it was like, that's an easy one there. VCU, it was kind of so VCU 2.5-point dogs against North Carolina. I started seeing the money turn toward VCU because North Carolina, I think initially was a 5 to 6.5 point favorite, if I'm not mistaken. But I went ahead and went with that. VCU to cover 2.5 points. VCU actually beat North Carolina, which I did read today that North Carolina's coach is not coming back next year. This could have something to do with it, but good for VCU. They covered. It's always good for my pocketbook when they cover my bets. Illinois was playing Penn. Now, I did win on Penn throughout their tournament because they were a dog throughout their conference tournament, the Ivy League. And they actually won the championship when they shouldn't have. Went to the tournament. Well, now you see why, because they actually played Illinois, who was a 24.5-point favorite, and they lost by 35 points. So good. Penn made me some good money up to then. Illinois said, hey, we'll take over right here. Thank you guys for doing that. A&M, I told you this. I'm not a fan of A&M, but I thought they could beat St. Mary because even though, so Gonzaga, St. Mary, and Santa Clara, which I think I picked them as well. Those guys were pretty good teams, but I don't know, I just wasn't convinced that those guys were going to be good, even though they beat up on each other and they had really good records. So I went with A&M, and A&M beat them by 13 points. So, phew. All right, that was a good one there. And then the last one, I had U of H. That was one of the bigger numbers, 23.5. And I thought, man, should I go with them? And said, no, they have something to prove. They lost the Big 12 championship game. So I thought they'd come out with a little chip on their shoulder, and they did. They won by 31 points over Idaho. So 6-2 in this one. That was really good. So getting better. Let's see what happens on the next one. So the Midwest was almost as good. Only 5-3, but you know what? This put me over the 500 mark. Actually, the last one put me over the 500 mark. But this was really good too. So we'll run through these. So I did like Howard in the first four. So I said, you know what? Let's go Howard to cover against Michigan. They actually played Michigan really well. They only lost by 21 points. So that 31 points, thank you, Howard. They're not going to go to the next round, but it's okay. They did their part. Georgia and St. Louis. So St. Louis, the Billikens, I did like those guys. And I didn't like Georgia anyway. And I didn't think Georgia was that good. And sure enough, St. Louis beat them by almost 30 points. So that plus 1.5, yeah, blew that out the water. So Georgia, definitely their football school, not a basketball school. Now Texas Tech against Akron. I don't know why. I think, well, because I do know why. I thought Texas Tech's without their big man. They're going to struggle. They'll probably win, but they're going to struggle. But in Akron, keep it within 8.5. Now Akron lost by 20. Not a good pick. So note to self, don't pick Akron next year. Alabama, 11.5-point favorite. Those guys are good. They played Hofstra. They beat them by 20. So, we'll take that one too. Tennessee so Miami, Ohio played Tennessee. Now, even though I knew they could probably win in the first four, I did not think they would win here. Actually, at the time that I picked this, I picked Tennessee money line because the spread had not come out yet, and I wanted to put out that video. I think the spread ended up being like 6 or 7 points. They actually won by 22, so I think they would have even covered the spread. I feel like it was 10, maybe 9 to 10 points. So, but Tennessee came through for me there. Virginia, 18.5-point favorites. Virginia's really good. I thought they'd be better. They played Wright State. They only won by 9 points. So, but those are tough. When the spread is that big, you don't know who's going to show up, what underdog team's really going to give it their all and, like show out like some of the other ones earlier. But it's okay. And then Santa Clara, I told you that. Like I picked Santa Clara. I should have known that. When I didn't pick Gonzaga, well, I did earlier, and they lost. I didn't pick St. Mary's. I knew I shouldn't have picked Santa Clara, but I did. And Kentucky said, yeah, no, we're not having any of that. Kentucky beat them by 5 points. So it was a good try. Santa Clara actually had it close, but Kentucky pulled away there in overtime. When it's overtime, it should be pretty close, but it wasn't. And then Iowa State, I thought Iowa State also had something that they felt like they were going to prove. So even though it was 24.5 points, they played Tennessee State, and they beat them pretty good. So, but yeah, that was the first round of the NCAA tournament. Had a pretty good record there. Just a quick recap. Let's see: 5-3, 6-2, 4-4, and then 3-5. So that was pretty fun to do. I'll do a quick show over the games that played going to the Sweet 16, and then I'll put out one about talking about who's going to win at the Sweet 16, who will cover. Maybe we'll get some parlays in there and see if there's some underdogs that you might want to pick. So if you're watching, please like, and if you want to subscribe, I'd greatly appreciate that. But thanks for watching, and we will be back again on the next one. Thanks.